Hello and welcome to another episode of Observation Conversations, where today we will be discussing a movie that we actually just watched. There's barely been an hour between us watching this movie and us talking about it now. The newly released sequel to the classic 1996 film Space Jam: A New Legacy. I am Jonathan Goodisonor, joined as always by my intrepid co-host and definitely, probably not a Warner Brothers IP, Reid Chrisman. How you doing, Reid?
I'm doing well, my friend. How are you?
I'm good. We just watched this movie, and so this is kind of a reaction video as well as being a true review.
Yeah, it's kind of a little bit of both. I mean, this movie's been out for how long?
About
It hasn't been too long, but it's also been a few weeks, I think.
Yeah, it's been about 2.5 weeks or so.
Yeah.
Yes, and I think a lot of you out there might be asking yourselves, why, of all the movies we could talk about, are we doing a review of Space Jam: A New Legacy? And there are a few different answers to that question. First and foremost, I'll speak for myself. I'm a big fan of the Looney Tunes. How do you feel about Looney Tunes, Reid? Did you grow up with those characters?
They were a cornerstone of my childhood,
Mm.
I have to say. I remember one time we went to like a Warner Brothers studio tour, and I convinced my parents to buy this like 2 DVD box set of various Looney Tunes cartoons. And I brought them home and watched them all several times over the years. And they're great. They're great.
Absolutely.
They're so much fun. I think Roadrunner and Wile E. Coyote are my favorite.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, me too. I mean, the Looney Tunes were some of my favorite, animated, just animated anything growing up. Really, I had the full box set, the whole DVD box set growing up, and I watched that thing cover to cover.
Yeah.
I love the Looney Tunes. And also the original Space Jam with Michael Jordan back in '96. That was one of my all-time favorite movies as well growing up. I remember when I watched that for the first time, I was so blown away by it. I must have been 7, 8 years old at the time, and I loved it.
Was that one of the first like cross-media movies you've seen? Kind of like Who Framed Roger Rabbit, where it was like that blend of cartoon and live action.
Yeah, I had seen Who Framed Roger Rabbit prior to Space Jam, but I remember well, and I really loved Who Framed Roger Rabbit, but I remember liking Space Jam even more than that.
Yeah.
I just absolutely adored that movie. I mean, and you can go back and watch that movie today. And I even went back recently and kind of just watched some clips from that movie. And so much of it is still just as funny now as an adult as it was when I was a little kid. So love the Looney Tunes. It is a classic. It's absolutely a classic. Love the Looney Tunes. Love that movie. The original Space Jam. Also, it seems fitting, right now as we're recording this, we're still in early August, so the Olympics are going on. So it seemed nice to do a sports movie.
If you could call this a sports movie.
Well, yes, sports
we'll get
movie with
into
an
it,
asterisk
but
attached.
Yeah, very large asterisk.
Yeah, and also for another thing, I'm a big fan of LeBron. I've followed his career ever since the Miami days, and when he went back to Cleveland, and particularly when he made the move from Cleveland to Los Angeles to play for the Lakers. He went to the Lakers around the same time I was still living in Southern California, and I remember the immense excitement around him coming, and obviously him winning a title for the Lakers last year was huge. Not that the Lakers needed another title. I mean, they're already a very storied franchise, but to come over to a new city and in his second year, in a pandemic year, win a title, that was that was big for that city. And so I am a Laker fan. I am a LeBron James fan. I even have a pair of LeBron shoes. I bought those a few months ago. Love them, by the way. They're my favorite shoes ever. Those are fantastic shoes. So, fan of the property, fan of the player. Seemed like the stars aligned for it, really. And so
here's how I feel about LeBron. Cool dude.
Mm.
As you know, I grew up, lived in New Jersey pretty much my whole life.
Mm.
No association with LeBron. But then I went to school in Cleveland for a couple
Mm-hmm.
years. But by that time he had already left, so I still had
True.
no association with LeBron, so I have like no opinion of him.
Yeah. Yeah, that is true. I think the year that you moved out to Cleveland was the year that he left for Los
Yeah, it was like
Angeles.
the
So
same year, the year after or something. I
yeah,
think there were still like posters hanging down on the Rocket Mortgage Stadium.
yeah.
And it's
So
just
it's
like,
you just missed it. So
I miss Cleveland at its peak economy.
there you go. Yeah, that's truly the one man leaves, and
Not that there's like much of a sight, but
right.
I mean, apparently when there were games, like, the streets would be packed.
Oh yeah.
But during the rest of the year when I was there, it was just kind of a ghost town. So,
Yeah. So
but
you just missed it.
yeah, but he's a big deal.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, greatest player playing today. I'm not sure I'd go so far as to say greatest of all time yet. That's a debate that's raged for a decade. Is
Yeah.
LeBron, has he surpassed Jordan? I still think Jordan is the best of all time, but I think LeBron, I think he can credibly be in that conversation. So yes, the stars aligned, and we watched this movie. Well, this is going to be a full spoiler review, so we're not going to go really into a non-spoiler review. Let's just say, Reid, would you recommend people of any age watch Space Jam: A New Legacy?
Uh, um, eh. If you got a kid that's easily entertained
Mm,
and you're not going to pay attention, then maybe
I
there are fun
guess.
visuals that they'll get engaged by, lots of bright colors. But uh, if you have any self-respect or respect for LeBron James, you will not go see this movie.
Yeah, no, I do not recommend Space Jam: A New Legacy. And honestly, and we'll talk about this once we get into spoilers. But if I were watching this movie as a kid, I would mostly be bored. Like you said, you would have to have an easily entertained kid. Emphasis on easily.
Yeah, like the younger the better, really.
Yeah.
Because
I mean,
if they're still in that phase where it's like, they're learning their colors and like seeing lights is cool.
yeah, a toddler, pretty much.
Yeah. If they're a toddler, show them this movie. But
Sure.
get them exposed to the dangers of the internet early. But
I guess. But yeah, no, I would not recommend it. I wasn't having fun with it as an adult, and if you had shown me this movie when I was 8 years old, I really would have been mostly bored, honestly. Like there's just not a lot to latch onto if you're, a child of moderate or above intelligence, I would say. But we'll get into that. So with that out of the way, let's get into the meat of this. Well, I mean, I took notes on the movie as we watched it. Honestly, it's not even anything terribly comprehensive.
I mean, do you want to go through plot wise, or do you want to like talk about like topics? However you want to. You're the one who's a little more prepared for this, so.
Well, we can just run through the plot quickly. There's not a lot of it. So
that's very true.
Yeah, so the movie opens the same way as the original one does. The original one had, young Michael Jordan, shooting hoops, just in his backyard and talking with his dad. And this one, it opens with young LeBron, and he's playing a basketball game, but he's distracted by like a Game Boy, like he has a Game Boy with him, and he's like playing this like Looney Tunes game, like a Bugs Bunny game. And
I don't think that ever existed, by the way.
I don't
believe there was
a
Looney Tunes game for the Game Boy.
Yeah, I have no idea if that was real or not. Probably something just they made up. So LeBron gets scolded by his coach that he needs to focus more on basketball and less on distractions like video games. And then, okay, in the first Space Jam, the opening scene was kind of poignant because it was it was young Michael Jordan getting this pep talk from his dad, and we know that in Michael Jordan's real life he was very, very close with his dad, and he was shattered when his dad passed away, and right around the peak of his NBA career. But this, it's just his coach told him to play less video games, whatever.
Yeah.
And then it's also similar to, well, not similar to, but the same kind of thing as the first movie, in that it then goes into like this intro montage, this greatness montage, of showing LeBron as his progress from high school into he went straight from high school into the NBA, his first stint in Cleveland, and then going to Miami, winning those championships, going back to Cleveland, winning a championship there, and then finally
leaving
coming
again
to Los Angeles. Yeah, leaving a second time, going to Los Angeles, winning a championship in Los Angeles. So also kind of similar.
Honestly, that sequence was really cool.
Yeah,
that might actually be the highlight of the movie. If this was for like a sports documentary or something like that, would have been amazing.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely.
Great visuals, great kind of collage of his career. I did really enjoy that part.
Yeah, in fact, in many ways, you'll notice a theme as we go through this, that the best parts of this movie were the parts where they just pretty much emulated the first movie and didn't try to do anything else, because the ideas that they had, well, anyway. So now we cut to present day at the James household. And also, it should be noted that LeBron's family, they're all actors, and none of them are actually LeBron's family members.
Okay, yeah, I was asking myself that.
No, he's not related to any of them, which we'll talk about why I think that's significant later on. But they're all actors. His two sons are playing basketball, and I guess the younger son, who is kind of one of the focal points of the movie, he misses like this layup shot, or this alley-oop, I guess, and LeBron like scolds him, and he's like,
you're playing too much video games.
Yeah, he's got to work hard on the court and all that. And yeah, so essentially this kid, he like programs video games. It's like, that's like his thing. He's into like coding and stuff. He shows LeBron the game that he made, but LeBron manages to crash it immediately. The whole thing like gets deleted, because I guess this kid didn't save his work one time in the weeks that he's been programming this game.
Yeah, really dumb.
Yeah.
Also not how computers work.
No, not at all. But that's something that happens, and then we like transition, and we get introduced to Don Cheadle's character, who's Algae Rhythm, and he lives in this place.
This entire episode, I'm only going to be referring to him as Algorithm. I refuse to use that name.
Well, fair enough. I will.
I refuse to dignify that name by saying it out loud.
I will bite the bullet and say Algae Rhythm. And he is like, he decides that Warner Brothers needs LeBron because LeBron's really popular and he has lots of social media followers, and I apologize to everyone in the audience if I just sound dead inside. It's because I'm really struggling to explain this.
This is literally the plot of the movie. This is actually what happened.
Yeah, so Algae Rhythm, I guess he's analyzed every person on Earth and has decided that Warner Brothers needs LeBron to be, I guess, a spokesman for Warner Brothers, or like promote their movies or something. So he decides that he needs to get LeBron. So he sends LeBron an email to come to Warner Brothers for a meeting. And so LeBron comes to the meeting with like his agent guy. And for some reason, he also brings his like 12-year-old son to the business meeting as well.
Yeah,
I couldn't begin to tell you why.
This movie is just littered with plot convenience.
Yeah, and so they go to Warner Brothers, and uh, Sarah Silverman is one of the Warner Brothers people, and Stephen Yun is also there as like a Warner Brothers suit person, and they're like
For like
explain.
30 seconds, by the way.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
just realized like they were only in that like beginning scene. They never
yeah,
showed up again, which was just like,
yeah,
why
which
did you spend that much money on a stacked cast that isn't in like even a minute's worth of the movie?
it's a good point, because I mean, like, these are like very expensive cameos. Like, at least have them show up at on like the sidelines of the game, like at
Yeah,
the end of the movie,
right?
you know. But yeah, they were literally just there to collect a paycheck. I'm sure they were in and out of filming in like half a day, less than
Half an
that.
hour more like.
Yeah, half an hour pretty much. So you know, LeBron and his son, they like get into this. They get into like this
His
tizzy
son
about.
wants to go to an E3 game making camp, and
Yeah,
LeBron wants him to go to a basketball camp.
yeah,
So the son storms off. LeBron chases him. They go into an elevator. Algorithm takes over the elevator and sends them down to the server room, where they walk into the server room and get zapped into the digital world.
yes. Okay,
That
thank you very
is
much.
literally what happens.
Yeah, and
When they
so
talked about when the presentation that Algorithm gave, I thought it was going to be like they scan LeBron and then have like a digital copy of him in the digital verse.
mm,
But no, they literally zap him from the real world too, because everyone in this movie, everyone who was part of this movie and made this movie definitely understands how computers work.
yeah, and I mean, it doesn't even matter, because it's so stupid to begin with. But anyway, LeBron and his son get zapped into the serververse, and so they're in the serververse now, and you know, um, essentially Don Cheadle, he lays out the rules, that he's gonna challenge LeBron to a basketball game, and he has
For some
24
reason.
hours, yeah, to put his squad together. And if he wins, then he and his son get to leave the serververse, and just everything's cool. But if they lose, then Algae Rhythm gets to keep LeBron there forever, and he'll just I guess just I still don't understand. Is like LeBron supposed to be like a part of every Warner Brothers thing? I guess.
I assume they just wanted to get him involved with a bunch of IPs so they could rake in that like
I guess.
celebrity like name cash. But
Yeah.
also, just to take it a step back, this algorithm brings LeBron and his son to the serververse, um, in the hopes that he'll cooperate, and then he doesn't.
Hmm.
So he's like, you know what? Let me challenge you at like the one thing you're really, really good at and are known for professionally,
Hmm.
instead of literally any other task that I, as a computer algorithm, would be infinitely better than you at.
Or just don't give him a choice. I
Or
mean,
that, yeah, like why
just
even?
trap him in the serververse
Yeah,
forever.
you already
You know,
have them there.
it's like you got what you wanted. You've got LeBron. It's anyway. There's no point for any of this. Like, once LeBron has been zapped into the serververse, that's it.
You
It's
got
over.
what you wanted. You tricked them.
I don't. Yeah. Also, Algae Rhythm, he's like this super advanced AI. So advanced that he says he created himself, and that's never refuted throughout the movie. So this is
I didn't even catch that. That
yeah,
doesn't make
when
a lick of sense.
when he's like in that, like, when he's at the Apple Store Genius Bar with the kid, he's like explaining where he came from, and he's like, well, he just kind of created himself. He's this AI that created himself, and also he has access to any device on Earth that's connected to the internet. And so,
Is Warner Brothers a risk to national security?
well, that's what I'm saying is, how is an AI so advanced that it created itself and it can be on any internet connected device anywhere in the world? And it's like this weird, like, Warner Brothers,
And it
like,
shows the likeness of
content
Don
curator.
Cheadle.
Why is it a Warner Brothers thing? Is what I'm saying. Why is this super advanced AI specific to Warner Brothers? Like, it doesn't
Yeah,
have to
the one,
be.
an animation company, which like is not super likely to have a very advanced, sophisticated AI. It's not
Yeah.
like IBM's Watson or anything, or
Which
some kind of
also,
military.
Which also, I mean, if the AI created itself, I mean, is Warner Brothers like, do they not question like where this thing came from? Like they didn't make him, he made himself. So are they not aware that they even have an AI and they just think that it's just like computer programming? Or
Like I said, you can tell that every single person part of this production definitely understands how computers work.
Yeah, so moving along. So Algae Rhythm pulls a lever to send LeBron to the rejects, and so he's like falling through the serververse, and he goes past a bunch of different recognizable Warner Brothers IP, like Harry Potter world, and the Matrix world, and also Casablanca world, which that's not even the last Casablanca reference that we get from the serververse, which, I mean, like, it's a very popular movie. It's a very classic movie, but
considering the demographic that A New Legacy is supposed to be pandering to,
yeah,
kind of a weird callback.
Yeah, that's a little bit odd. But eventually he lands in Toon World, and he runs into Bugs Bunny. Toon World has been emptied. It's just completely vacant. Nobody's there except for Bugs Bunny. There was like a flash of something kind of cool where, like, when he's first meeting Bugs Bunny, they do the classic, duck season, rabbit season bit. Like that's cool because that's a Looney Tunes thing. So
yeah,
like
but then they pulled Big Chungus out of nowhere, and it was just like,
yeah,
come on, you're like a year and a half too late. What are you doing?
And so that was like 5 seconds of something cool, but then so they do this, they go around Toon World, and Bugs Bunny explains why it's empty, because Algae Rhythm convinced all of the other Looney Tunes to, I guess, leave Toon World to just be existing in the serververse generally.
For some reason.
Yeah, but Bugs
they get themselves involved in other IPs for some reason.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not really well explained.
Yeah, which also the whole conceit of the first movie, the reason why, the threat, the consequence if the Toon Squad didn't win in the first movie was because if they didn't win, then they were going to be amalgamated into this, this massive corporation, and they were going to become part of this theme park. And that's, I forget the name of the character, but, the character that Danny DeVito voices, that guy, like the greedy, corporate guy, he's the one that, gives the Monstars their power so that they can beat the Toon Squad, and then they'll win Toon World and they'll become part of this massive, his corporation. But apparently in the 25 years that have passed, none of, the idea of just being absorbed into a massive corporation does not bother the Toons in the slightest, because they leave with minimal convincing. They just fuck off and go. It's like, we're fed up with it. They love being part of the greater corporate entity now. So anyway, Bugs and LeBron, Bugs resolves to help LeBron because he needs to get his son back from Algae Rhythm, and so they contrive a way to escape the Toon World by getting Marvin the Martian to come down from space by claiming the Earth for Earth, and then Marvin the Martian comes down and he tries to claim it for Mars, and they steal a ship. It's a shame that Marvin the Martian is relegated to this lame punchline not once, not twice, but 3 different times in the movie, considering that
rule of threes.
His help would have been immensely beneficial in the game.
He would have been such a good play with his anti-gravity ray. He could just
he has
as they're doing a layup and they just float above the basket.
Yeah, that honestly, that maybe he's too powerful, so they had to sidelight him.
It might be like a Hulk and Thor being excluded from Civil War type of situation, where they're just we can't write him into the script in a way that's balanced and fair.
Right.
So let's just cut him.
Yeah, just got to move him to one side. So they steal a ship, and the ship is also a Star Trek ship, I guess.
It's I
It's
don't think it
kind of
was.
yeah.
I thought
Well,
it
I
was
mean,
just
well,
a
the
typical saucer.
interior was it is a
Oh,
saucer, but the interior was like a Star Trek thing, and
maybe.
and Bugs Bunny was doing like the
Oh,
Captain's
Captain's
log,
Log. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
star date, yada yada yada. So that is a Star Trek reference. Um, And essentially, LeBron is explaining how, he's making this list of all these people that he would want to be on his team. And it's a very logical list. He's got like Superman,
Superman,
Batman, Trinity from the Matrix, like
Iron Giant,
Iron Giant, yeah,
King
King
Kong.
Kong, yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
That's the team I wanted to see. I would
Yeah,
have loved to actually see that team play out.
yeah,
Because that
that
would
would
have
have
been
been
so
awesome.
cool.
And well, yeah, and yeah, we do see Superman. We'll see him in a minute. So they're they're going on the serververse, and they have to recruit all the tunes back from the various corners that they've scattered off to. This was, again, this was one of, if not the highlight of the movie for me, because again, it was the Looney Tune stuff. Shocking, the Looney Tune stuff was the best stuff in the Looney Tune movie.
Yeah.
So first they go to like this like DC animated world, and that's where Daffy and Porky are, and Daffy's like this like Superman like imitation, and Porky's like filming him, and they're on this train that's gonna like crash into an orphanage. Until it gets stopped and saved by the real Superman. And LeBron and Bugs Bunny are there, and LeBron is about to ask Superman to join the team, but then we cut away. We don't actually see what Superman says to this offer. We don't know why Superman can't help on this team. You would think Superman, being a pretty stand-up guy, would help LeBron get his son back from algebra.
Save like the universe.
Yeah, but
save everyone from being trapped in the serververse, but
yeah, but apparently apparently he can't fit it into his schedule, so we just cut away. We don't even get to see. I wish we could have seen Superman explain why he can't, like just say like algorithm is gonna like delete him, or if he crosses him or whatever. But
you know what, honestly, like not to like barrel through everything, but like this whole sequence where they're collecting characters and visiting like different IPs, that's just a big montage.
Mm-hmm.
And I really wish like it took up a larger portion of the movie.
Yeah, because this was the cool
first
part.
of all, the movie is like way too long.
Yeah.
It should not be 2 hours, like 90 minutes max. But like there's so much stuff that's like unnecessary, and if they like timed everything out better, they could have had this cool sequence where like the entire second act of the movie is them, instead of just a quick montage, them actually like traveling from world to world.
Yeah.
Because we see like Wile E. Coyote in Mad Max like superimposed over the footage. That was like so cool. And really
that
funny.
Was really cool. Yeah.
But
it
only exists for like maybe a minute.
Oh, absolutely. I agree with you. I think that this sequence really should have been at least the majority of the second act, because this was the cool part.
Yeah.
So after the DC animated world, they go to Mad Max, which was really cool, and that's where Roadrunner and Wile E. Coyote is. And then they go to Austin Powers world, where they find Elmer Fudd is Dr. Evil, which was, again, that was funny.
Great.
That
like,
was cool.
They should have stayed there for longer.
Yeah, and also Sylvester and Tweety are there. And again, we go back to Casablanca, and Yosemite Sam is there until they kind of get him. And then they're on their way to Game of Thrones world when they run into Rick and Morty, who like just give them the Tasmanian Devil.
Don't know why they were there, where they came from.
Well, because
how they're even a Warner Brothers property. I thought they were owned by Adult Swim.
Yeah, well, I think Adult Swim is owned by Turner, and I think Turner is under the same Warner Brothers umbrella. So, yeah, because also we should mention it's not just movies that the Warner Brothers Studios produce. It's also not even TV shows, but it's channels that are just under the Warner
TNT.
Media, like just television channels just that are just owned by Warner Media that also feature in this movie. So it's not even IP; it's just straight up advertisements as well.
Yeah.
But
That was the weird thing too. I couldn't tell if this movie was one giant advertisement for Warner Brothers or Warner Media, or just one giant advertisement for LeBron James. Because
both.
at times it felt like either.
Yeah,
Yeah, it probably was both, but it was just like
it was both, but but I after the synopsis, I want to talk about why from LeBron's standpoint, I can see why this was an attractive project, but I think that it went. I don't think that this is. I don't think this is quite what he had in mind. And we'll get to that. But so yeah, they get Tasmanian Devil from Rick and Morty. Then they go to Game of Thrones world, and Foghorn Leghorn is Daenerys. So
for some reason.
Well,
again, it's never explained why the Looney Tunes are like part of these other live action intellectual properties.
Yeah, well, they're all in the serververse now, so
yeah, they're just. But like, why each one went to that specific one, or
I think that. Yeah, I think they just kind of gravitated to the ones that they just most wanted to be in, I guess. But I don't know why Foghorn would be Daenerys. Like, it would be cool if he was like, Ned Stark or somebody cool. But like Daenerys, So I guess canonically he's a mass murderer. Then he burns children. Which is unexpected wrinkle to the game to the Looney Tunes lore.
He's also a nephew fucker.
Yeah, exactly.
So
so there you go. There's that's canon now.
Yeah.
And then we go to the Matrix, which this was cool. Granny is like she's Neo, and Speedy Gonzalez is also there. And like
no. Granny is Trinity.
Oh, is she? Okay, sorry.
Yeah, she's Trinity, and Speedy is Neo.
Oh, right. Yes, thank you. Yeah. So and
again, would have been great to stay longer in the Matrix verse.
Yeah.
But
well, the one cool thing that happens is Granny does like that awesome flying kick from the Matrix. So that was cool. And then we move on. And then the last person we have to recruit is Lola, who is literally just in the opening scene of Wonder Woman 84, which, wouldn't you know, you could also stream that on HBO Max.
But it was also a comic book. It was comic book instead of like the live action or just back in the DC animated world, which would probably make more sense.
Yeah, I thought that was very odd that you had two separate DC things, other than the fact that I guess they just literally wanted to put in a callback to another DC blockbuster that you can stream on HBO Max. Although, of course, if you were going to get the reference, you would have had to have seen that movie in the first place. So it's stupid. Moving on. So they get everybody, and they go back to Toon World. And, when they get back, they have an hour left before the game. And
this is something we noticed that was like really, really weird.
Yeah.
They land in the saucer, and it cuts to the clock, and it's like 59 minutes, 59 seconds. And then they talk for about a minute, and they're like trying to come up with a strategy. And then time's up. You guys need to get your act together. Like, we need to train. And then all of a sudden they look up, and the clock's ticked to 0. And it's like, how did an hour pass in 30 seconds?
Yeah.
Was that like intentional? Was that a mistake on the like visual supervisor's part? Like, what happened?
Yeah, that was really odd, and it was obvious too. Like we noticed it right away. But but anyway, it doesn't matter. Time's up. Game starts. Like the basketball court, like Toon World just like collapses in on itself. It's just like disintegrates, and like the basketball court and the arena and the surrounding area is all kind of formed. And Al G Rhythm shows up, and LeBron's son is there, and
his son has been recruited by Algorithm to play his game Dom Ball instead of basketball. And to cheat by creating these mashups of like great NBA players with random animals or elements into these weird CGI monstrosities.
You've got NBA players and WNBA players, and they're turned into the Goon Squad.
Yeah.
And notably, one of them is Anthony Davis, who is LeBron's kind of superstar teammate on the Lakers. They mock his unibrow because Anthony Davis has very pronounced eyebrows in real life. But that they're the Goon Squad, and like all these different. Okay, so the crowd forms, and it's composed of just every kind of Warner Brothers, anything that they could possibly pull from. Hanna-Barbera cartoons like the Flintstones and Yogi Bear are there, and the Jetsons also.
Iron Giant.
The Iron Giant is there. King Kong is there. Gremlin, the Gremlins from Gremlins are there. Jack Nicholson's Joker is there, and also we see later on in the crowd, Danny DeVito's Penguin is also in the audience. Scooby Doo and the Mystery Gang are there. Pennywise from It is there. There are nuns from Sister Act.
It looks like
The Mask.
It looks like a scene straight out of Ready Player One.
Pretty much. That's pretty much what it was.
Yeah.
And also, inside the NBA, they got I forget his name. Eddie, I think his name is. I forget his last name. The bow tie guy.
Oh yeah, announcer.
From inside the NBA. But it's just him though. I guess they couldn't get Kenny Smith or Shaq or what's his name? Charles Barkley. I guess they were too busy. So it's
too smart.
Yeah, or too smart. More likely. I mean, it would have been good because those are actual other former very famous NBA players, but no, they couldn't make it. But Lil Rel Howery is there, so hooray!
Yeah.
And also Alan G. Rhythm, because he can just access any internet-connected device anywhere on Earth, he uses LeBron's phone that he took from him when he entered the serververse to send this thing to all of his social media followers.
All right. Here's how this works. In the Warner Brothers server room, for whatever reason, there is this giant spherical device that can digitize anyone who steps into it and physically transport them from the real world to the digital world. Dom, while making his game, used a 3D scanner app on his phone to get 3D models and body tracking to make his NBA and WNBA characters for his game. And the movie decides, hey, what if we could do the thing that requires an entire room to do through the phone, just because we mentioned body scanning, and that probably means digitizing and transporting, literally teleporting millions of people because of their iPhones
to watch the game.
So yeah,
for some reason,
and they're being held captive to watch the game.
Yes, and also if the Toon Squad loses the game, LeBron, his son, and also all of the millions of people LG Rhythm has brought into the serververse all have to stay there. Which
they're already there.
Which for
they
some
can't get out on their own. Why?
But also,
give them the possibility.
Why does LG Rhythm want millions of people in the serververse?
I mean, in the beginning, it was he wanted recognition. He wanted people to recognize how smart he was.
Right.
And that's why he picked LeBron James for some reason, because LeBron James was famous, and then if Algorithm shows up with LeBron James, then people will realize that Algorithm is a cool guy.
Right.
Right. And somehow that transforms into, trapping millions of people in a digital hellscape.
Right.
And holding them captive.
Right, which now means millions fewer people to pay for HBO Max and go watch Warner Brothers films.
That is true, actually.
So,
for an algorithm, this guy's pretty dumb.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many IP characters in the crowd. Why do you need just millions of just ordinary people? It doesn't make any sense. It's stupid. Anyway.
Right.
Yeah. Also, the agent from earlier, like LeBron's like business guy, like he's like all panicked because he lost LeBron and his kid, and so like LeBron's wife and other kids come to the studio, I guess, to look for him, um, because if LeBron just went missing in the middle of the Warner Brothers lot, nobody would really care. So his family would have to personally come search for him. Like even the security guy he talks to just like doesn't give a shit.
Yeah.
That LeBron James has gone missing on the Warner Brothers lot someplace. And so they also get sucked into the serververse, and they're there too.
Although they're in the server room next to the giant digitizing ball thingy, they get transported through their phone.
Yeah.
Anyways,
it's stupid.
Yeah.
So the game starts, and like the thing about this is that in the first movie, obviously, it was still like this animated romp, so it wasn't basketball strictly speaking, but it still had the general contours of a game. This is not that. This is a game that is being played on a basketball court involving a basketball sometimes, but it is not basketball at all. The Goon Squad just like, they just like, they're doing all kinds of crazy shit.
Yeah.
And they're just like, they score 1,000 points.
It's video game rules. They can do whatever they want because
the
people who write this movie definitely know what video games work.
Yeah,
how they work.
Including one moment where the basket literally shifts so that the ball will go into it for the Goon Squad, which I did laugh at that.
What the fuck is this? A Mark Rober dartboard? Like, come on.
Like honestly, like I let out a laugh of despair when I saw the basket literally shift so that the ball would fall into it, because it's just laughable. So yeah, the Goon Squad, they're doing all kinds of crazy stuff. They're using their abilities to like score 1,000 points, and their style points, which means they just get more points, and it's stupid. And it's
within like the first play of the game, they have like 1,000 points.
Pretty much. And so they go into halftime, and all is lost. Right? There's no way they could possibly come back from this.
1,039 to 0. They're not gonna come back.
Yeah, well,
they have like some points, but they have like 16.
Yeah, I think Lola scored like once, and LeBron scored once.
Basically, they're more than 1,000 points behind.
Yeah, and so Daffy Duck says that, or no, sorry, not Daffy. Sylvester says that he found Michael Jordan in the crowd, and he's recruited Michael Jordan to join the Toon Squad to rally them to victory in the second half of the game. And that would have been really cool because,
an amazing callback.
Yeah, I mean, Michael Jordan, even if you get present day, older Michael Jordan, like it would just be really cool to see him, because obviously that would not only be a connection to the first film, but it's like, GOAT meets GOAT kind of thing. Like, like the two foremost players of their time. Like even if he doesn't play, like just to have him
like
there
he coaches
for a
or something.
Yeah, like that would be awesome. That would be awesome. But no, of course not. That would be far too cool for this movie. It's not Michael Jordan, the basketball player. It's Michael B. Jordan, the actor. And he also just shows up for like 45 seconds to get his paycheck, because I guess he needs to get a pool for his second property in LA. So he's I'll do this for like 45 seconds in your crappy movie, sure. And he like tries to do like the Friday Night Lights, the pep talk thing, but it doesn't have it. It doesn't do anything, and so he just kind of leaves.
Yeah.
But eventually, LeBron realizes he's been coaching the Looney Tunes all wrong, because he's been trying to coach them as if this were an actual basketball game. And
it's clearly not.
Yeah, but the new strategy is just let the Looney Tunes do Looney Tunes stuff, which should have been obvious. from the beginning.
Yeah.
But we go into the second half of the
Literally,
game.
like the first one of the first scenes in the movie was like, when his son is on the court and it was like, I'm just having fun, and then LeBron is like, you can't have fun, you got to be working on the court.
Yeah.
Now it's like, oh, it turns out you can have fun playing basketball. That's the lesson I learned.
Yeah.
And it's just like, who would have guessed?
Yeah, and so
Surely not I.
and so we get to the second half of the game, and once again, like I said, this is going to keep coming up. The cool parts were the Looney Tunes parts, when the Looney Tunes are just doing their stuff. Like, it's cool, and like that was fun.
Also, wait, we skipped over something really important that I want to talk about. Why did they feel the need to make 3D CGI versions of the Looney Tunes?
Yeah,
that was really disgusting.
Yeah,
and unenjoyable, and it just kind of ruins a lot of the characters for me.
Well, yeah, when the game starts, Algae Rhythm, like, because all the Looney Tunes are like in their traditional animation, and LeBron is animated too.
2D animated, yeah.
Yeah, but he like turns them all into now they're all CG animated.
Like, why?
Yeah, and it was unnecessary, especially because they become animated again at the very end of the game, and you can see like this does look better.
And the 2D just looks so much better, and I think it would have made all their like Looney Tunes gags that much better.
Yeah,
they stayed 2D.
I can't imagine why they felt it necessary to do that, other than it's something that wouldn't have been possible technically in 1996, and so it's like, well, we have to make this seem new and relevant, so let's like do this technical thing that literally wouldn't have been possible 25 years ago, even though it looks worse and is unnecessary. And we've already been doing the superior thing for the first half of the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We already learned this lesson when that first Sonic trailer dropped. And boy. Everyone was like, no.
Yeah, I'll say this.
Make it closer to the 2D. Make it look more like the 2D thing.
Yeah, I'll say this. It wasn't as bad as that Sonic trailer, but it was not good. So the Looney Tunes, they do their Looney Tunes stuff, and that's cool, and they like make all the points back. And then we get into the final seconds of the game, and
Dom switches teams because LeBron has learned his lesson, and they reunite as father and son.
Yeah, so that's the thing, is that LeBron is about to like do this cool thing, but instead of shooting the ball, he like just like holds the ball and has a conversation with his son. Because
I'm sorry, son.
The story is,
I should have let you have fun. I'm a bad dad. Sorry.
Yeah, the true power was the power of understanding. Also, we should say that LeBron's son, he's got like he leveled up himself. Like Algae Rhythm like gave him all these abilities in a video game, and so like he's like this he's just like super good at basketball. And he's like he cheated. He put up a bunch of points for the Goon Squad, but after seeing that Algae Rhythm, because he's kind of losing it a little bit as the Looney Tunes starts to score points, you sort of see that Algae Rhythm's kind of an asshole. He has this little conversation with his father. He switches sides and joins the Toon Squad. And then we get into the final seconds of the game, and Algae Rhythm, frustrated at seeing his massive lead evaporate, he turns himself into he just makes himself bigger.
Yeah.
And he makes himself like a basketball player.
But also CG. Like his face doesn't even look like his face. It actually looks like CG.
Yeah.
It's like taking a look at the guy who played Hagrid in Harry Potter, and then throughout the movie, as you're watching, he just immediately turns into PS2 Hagrid.
It's
just like, what?
Also, one of the Goon Squad members was Damian Lillard, the Kronos guy.
Yeah.
So that was cool, I guess.
I did like. He was definitely the coolest of the Goon Squad in terms of like character design and powers.
Yeah.
But also really OP.
Yeah. Also, random thought. Another reason why you should have had Charles Barkley in the Inside the NBA thing. He was in the first Space Jam also. So
Was he really?
Yeah, he was in that movie.
Huh.
So it just seems so obvious. It just seems so obvious. And let's be honest.
Well, a lot of things do in this movie, and yet here we are. So.
Yeah, and also, I mean, let's be honest. Charles Barkley, he's not that busy. Let's just be honest. But anyway, so because Al G Rhythm is now like this, like he's like a basketball player, and he's deliberately not allowing the Toon Squad to score any more points. And so the Toon Squad, they have a little huddle, and they realize that just like how LeBron broke his son's game that he programmed at the beginning of the movie, because this game is based on that game, if one of them does the same thing again, it will break the game in a way where Al G Rhythm can't stop them scoring points. And so they should do that, but the catch is whoever does that, their character will be deleted, just like what also happened earlier in the movie. And it's stupid because, as we established, when LeBron did that glitch, it just deleted everything and it destroyed everything. So presumably the same thing would happen here, and the serververse would crash, and everyone inside it would just cease to exist. Yeah, but it's all right because it'll break it in just such a way where it'll allow them to do the thing they need to do. And so LeBron volunteers to sacrifice himself to do the thing, and he's about to do it, but then Bugs Bunny actually does it, but it was really just to set LeBron up so he could do it. But then Al G Rhythm like jumps and like tackles him so he can't do it. But then the son picks up and throws like this jump pad thing, which allows LeBron to propel himself to the basket so he can
Again, not how video games work.
No, but he does it, and it's just enough. It's just enough points to put the Toon Squad over the top, and they win the game. And Al G Rhythm gets posterized. Whatever.
Sure. Cool.
And everybody just gets zapped out of the serververse back into the real world.
Even though Al G Rhythm was the one who did that in the first place, I guess he's a man of honor, or a man of paper. I don't know.
Or I guess it just he's not integral to the process of letting everybody go. I guess, or I don't know, but he's defeated and everybody goes back, and
Bugs Bunny is dying. Oh no, but he doesn't die because
you
can't kill a tune, like he said earlier in the movie. Callback.
Yeah, and so
stupid.
Yeah.
Reference.
And so the Jameses are reunited. They're a happy family once more. And LeBron is, he resolves to be a better dad and respect his son's interests. And
by telling his son that he's going to basketball camp, so his son packs all of the stuff he needs for basketball camp, and then he brings him to the fucking game designer camp without his laptop or any equipment that he would possibly need.
Yeah. And so, thanks, LeBron. And that's the end of the movie. And then, also Bugs Bunny is in the real world now. And I guess all the other Looney Tunes are as well. And like the end credits, I liked the end credits because
it was over.
It meant the movie was over. And I like the song that they played over the end credits. I'll have to Shazam that later. And also it's like photos of like Looney Tunes like going around like doing LA stuff, like going to the beach and all that.
All the parts where the Looney Tunes in their 2D animated forms were doing Looney Tunes things in a live action world were the good parts of the movie.
Yeah, that was cool.
Should have just done all of that and none of the CGI bull crap.
Yeah.
Bad.
So that is what happened in Looney Tunes: A New Legacy. So there's a lot to talk about. The first is, what does LeBron? What does LeBron get out of this, right? And well, yes, money, but he doesn't need the cash.
Yeah, that's true.
We know that I can understand how this happened because, a big part of the reason why LeBron left the Cavaliers for the Lakers is by putting himself at the center of the biggest basketball franchise on earth in the entertainment capital of the world. He could become more than just a basketball player. He could also become like this mogul of sorts. Because LeBron, he's got a lot of businesses. He's a very shrewd businessman, and he's been in movies before. He had a minor part in that comedy Trainwreck a few years ago that was generally well received. And so he's been wanting to do more on the film front. And not only does this movie give him an opportunity to be the star and headline in his own like high profile thing, like this franchise that's established, but also it gives him the opportunity to do something that we know he values more than anything else, which is the only other NBA star to do one of these, to do a Space Jam, is Michael Jordan, the GOAT.
Michael B. Jordan.
Michael Jordan. And Michael Jordan had his Space Jam, but LeBron considers himself to be the GOAT, as do many of his fans. And so if Jordan has a Space Jam, he's got to have a Space Jam too. So this is his Space Jam. Is that
TOO or TWO? Because this is a Space Jam too.
It is a Space Jam too, unfortunately.
Yeah. The first one was good.
Yeah, no, the first Space Jam was great. Like, as I said, one of my favorite movies as a kid. Absolutely adore the first Space Jam. Even the Brendan Fraser Looney Tunes Back in Action from I think that was early 2000s. That was better than this, as I recall. It makes sense why. But at the same time, I mean, yes, just in general, this movie isn't very good, but also the way he kind of comes out of this movie, LeBron's character, he's an inflexible asshole who drives his son away, doesn't respect him, doesn't care about his interests, just wants him to be a mini-me, and he comes around because he cares about his son, but it's also because his life and the lives of millions of people are also at risk.
Yeah.
And even when he does do the right thing and bring his kid to the coding camp or whatever, he could have just told him, I'm signing up for the coding camp. He didn't, even that he doesn't do correctly. He lies to his son.
You see him come around. You see him come around and he there's that scene, he throws the ball away and he hugs his son and it's like, oh, he's not even going to finish the game because that's how much he cares about his son. And, he wants to, do this his son's way. But then no, he still has to win.
Yeah. And
he wins. And then the first thing you see afterwards is, him next to his son holding a basketball going to camp. And you're like, motherfucker, did you just send your son to basketball camp anyways? Yes, it turns out to be a twist and it was video game camp, but completely undermines any change that you may have thought his character went through.
Also, it's an open question. Yeah. Also, it's an open question whether the kid even wants to go to the video game camp anymore. Because as he even says in that moment, we just kind of had this very traumatizing experience where we got trapped in a video game and almost died. So maybe I want to take a break from video games for a little while. But at that point, they're already at the camp. So
yeah, and he's like, oh, shit.
Yeah. But yeah, so I don't understand why this is the script. Because, we all understand, LeBron, yes, he's the star, but he's also a producer on this. This is pretty much, everything that happened in this movie, LeBron signed off on. The writing team, the director, everything. Nothing happens in the movie without LeBron's approval. And I just wonder why this was the Space Jam script that he signed on to, because it's just so unnecessary the way LeBron himself comes off in this, and I think this is the linchpin of it. I don't understand why they put such an emphasis on the family, subplot of this, that was not at all something that was the case in the first Space Jam. It was just Michael Jordan and he's in this world. And eventually Bill Murray shows up and Charles Barkley and a few other real basketball players. But that's it, pretty much. Once he's in, and there's no cross contact until the end of the movie. And that was great. You know, that movie was not lacking for any emotional center because you didn't involve, you know, Michael Jordan's family or his loved ones or anything like that. You know, you didn't need those stakes for it to be, you know, for it to be a fun, resonant movie.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, other than the obvious fact that you want Michael Jordan to get out so that he can be with his family again. That's it. That's really all the motivation you need. But in this movie, they make LeBron and his relationship with his son the linchpin of everything. And not only does it make LeBron look like this inflexible jerk, but it you don't need that to move the plot forward. I mean, you don't need that to be there. You know, like for instance, you know, first of all, as you can see, I'm trying to gather my thoughts here.
You seem like you're very, very frustrated and pissed off. You're like,
I am frustrated because there are so many obvious things that this movie, it's like the movie knows the right thing to do. It just deliberately chooses not to do it.
It is amazing how many like Hollywood writers and producers there are that continuously make really shitty mistakes that at this point they should know how to avoid.
Yeah. I mean, that's another thing. Is this movie was so predictable, which is part of what made it so boring. But, you know, you could still have everything happen the way it happened. LeBron goes to Warner Brothers, has the meeting, and then because Algae Rhythm, who's this, you know, this omnipresent AI, let's just say like LeBron gets into the elevator to like just like go down to the ground floor, but the elevator just takes him down to the server room directly, and that's how he traps him in there. And then that's the plot. Algae Rhythm wants to have LeBron in the serververse. He doesn't need the kid to design the game. He knows what he wants his game to look like. You know, he doesn't need the kid to be some superstar player. You could just, you know, create another member of the Goon Squad.
Yeah.
And, you know, you could just have it happen that way. You don't need to have any of the parts where, oh, you know, LeBron, he's not indulging his kid's interests, because you don't even need to. You could just have LeBron be as he is. I mean, that's not, and this is the part that I was getting to with the family, is that, you know, I don't understand why you needed to have the family full of other actors. You know, if you had minimized the role of the family as I'm proposing, you could have just had LeBron's real family, you know, just cameo in the movie, like they could show up at the end or whatever, and that would be fine. And, you know, LeBron, you know, his eldest son is already very much in the public light because he's a star high school player. He's probably going to go on to college or just straight to the NBA like his dad did. He also has another son who we don't really know as much about, but you know,
clearly he's a video game designer.
Well, you know, that's the thing, is that because of the plot of this movie, which LeBron signed off on, and it almost makes you wonder, well, is this like some reflection on what actually happens in the James household?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, but, you know, because that's also the thing in this movie, is that the older son is like into basketball, but, you know, the younger son isn't. But anyway, you know, and obviously, you know, LeBron's wife is very much in the public spotlight. So, you know, like you could just have them pop up at the end. It's fine. Or don't have them in there at all. But, you know, the son thing, it does not need to be the thing that drives the plot forward at all. Everything could happen in the exact same way, but just you take the kid out of it pretty much. And then, yeah, so, and also, I mean, yeah, it was unnecessary. And, you know, and here's the other part about it is, and this kind of gets into what I was saying about, you know, why, if I watched this movie when I was a kid, I would have been mostly bored by it. It's because that's not the stuff that entertains you when you're a kid. Like, you know, like all the stuff about the family and the father-son relationship and, you know, kind of coming around to understanding where his son was coming from. Like, that's boring when you're a kid. Like, you know, you don't like that. Like, that's not what you're watching the movie for. You're watching the movie for jokes, visual gags, basketball star, Looney Tunes. That's it. You know, You don't need to like have this emotional subplot to it. And that's just boring. On top of all the references to stuff that if you were a kid you just wouldn't get, like Game of Thrones or Casablanca or all this stuff. It's like, I don't even know what this is. Like half the references, you wouldn't even know what this is if you were a kid.
Like it's one thing for, there are tons of kids shows that will have like some adult jokes that just, go over kids' heads but kind of entertain the parents. But it's another to like have, a movie that's like full of very mature or attempted mature themes for a very immature audience.
Yeah. I mean, you would, if we were kids watching this, we would have been bored with the part where, it's LeBron like playing his son's video game. We would have been bored at the Warner Brothers corporate meeting. We would have been
bored at the part where he's hugging his son. Like
exactly, it's just it's
why
all
isn't
boring.
Shit going down?
And then meanwhile, you're aware of, you get excited because when the Looney Tunes part starts, it's like, oh yeah, that's the movie I wanted to watch. But then they're over in like a few minutes, and and that's it, And so it really annoys me because yes, this is a family movie. It's not for us. Well, it is. It's trying to be for us because it references the original movie, which we have nostalgia for. But it is for younger kids. But the problem with this, and frankly, a lot of family and kids movies these days, is that kids movies these days have no respect for the intellectual capacity of children. Like they dumb them down so much, and play them. They play down the lowest common denominator so much that it's just trite nonsense. Like,
did you ever watch Avatar: The Last Airbender as a kid?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Fantastic show. Yeah. Very adult themes in that.
Oh, absolutely.
Super adult themes. Like, you're talking about war and genocide and like, minority groups and the exclusion of other nations and like, geopolitics and like all this crazy stuff. And it's a kid's cartoon.
Yeah, I mean,
you gotta respect, and that's I'm kind of on the fence about whether the son was needed in this or not. But I can see a really good version of this where the family is minimized, where like, the struggle is not, maybe it opens up the same way where it's like, hey, you need to, focus on the game. You can't be dealing with all these distractions. And the struggle is that, he's very distant from his family. He doesn't really get along with them because he's constantly like playing and doing kind of all these brand deals and stuff. And it's like, his family is like, hey, can you just like take it easy and come home and relax, spend some time with their kids? And he's like, okay, I got this Warner Brothers meeting lined up. But after that, I swear I'm done. Yeah. And then he gets like trapped in the serververse and then has to escape to like reunite with his family. And the whole lesson is like, not taking life too seriously. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's okay to be distracted or do the things you care about. Yeah, but instead it's just like I should have been nicer to you. Like that's the same message in every goddamn kids movie. It's just like, oh, I should have listened to you. I should have been nicer to you. That's my bad.
Yeah, sorry. I mean, if you want a really good, well-written, compelling father-son story that is as good for kids as it is for adults, Finding Nemo. When we were growing up, that's the gold standard of a father-son relationship on screen. The kids are loving it because it's a great animated movie, but the adults can get a lot out of it too. This wasn't that, not even close. I mean, I'm just thinking about, the movies that we grew up with. You go back and you look at the 2000s, The Incredibles, WALL-E, Up, even the Shrek films. I mean, like, these were all movies that, yes, they're for kids, but everybody can get something out of them. There's parts today where you could go back and watch the movies. They're funny, they're poignant, they're emotional, heartbreaking even. Kids and adults, everybody's having fun. But I mean, today, what kind of movies are making for kids today? Trolls? Like, It's just trite nonsense. It's like it's like Hollywood forgot that, yes, children are not as intelligent as some 45-year-old, screenwriter, but they're not like, frogs.
Yeah.
Like they are capable of holding more than one thought in their heads at once. They have more intelligence.
Kids are not really going to be able to appreciate the Mona Lisa,
Mm.
but they're still drawing portraits.
Yeah.
Like, they understand the fundamentals of what goes into, a certain work of art. And, like, they like to draw pictures of themselves or their family or their friends. And it's like, yeah, it's not a Da Vinci painting, but, it's still kind of a sophisticated, like, that's not the best comparison, but, like, kids are smarter than we give them credit for. And it's like,
Yeah, I mean, and Hollywood used to know that. Hollywood used to know how to make movies that were for kids, but were still very intelligent, very witty, very funny, and that's why we loved them growing up, because we didn't feel like we were being lectured, or babied. We appreciated movies that kind of, respected our intelligence level. They were still entertaining, they were still colorful, they were still fun, they were still stupid oftentimes, but they were, they were of a certain level of quality.
As a kid, I feel like every kind of form of media or entertainment you consume should be intellectually challenging in some way. It doesn't need to be super, super challenging. That'd be absurd. You're not going to sit your kid down in a advanced physics lecture, because all of it's going to go over their head, but like,
yeah,
something that engages them and makes them think.
Yeah.
Not this where you shut off your brain and look at the pretty lights and pray to die for 2 hours.
Exactly. Like, it's just colors and noise, and
that actually leads me to another huge issue I have, which is Hollywood not understanding video games whatsoever at all. Because in every single movie, like, the way they use CGI to depict video games, it always looks the same. And even, like, I trust Ryan Reynolds, he's super funny, but like, I don't know if Free Guy is going to be a good movie. Maybe the story is good, but visually it just looks like more of that kind of Hollywood movie version of what a video game probably looks like bullshit. And it's like, I don't know if you ever saw Pixels with Adam Sandler.
No, and I'm aware of it, never saw it.
Yeah, but you know how it looks, right?
Yeah,
it's like everything is like these bright, flashy blue, like these blues and oranges, and like, it's like you have like, all these circles going around. Like, when Dom was like creating these characters, they were just like standing on a magical glowing platform with circles spinning around. And it's like, what does that mean? What does that represent? Like, that doesn't look like anything. And it's like the way they traverse, and the way, like, it's even like a larger issue too, because like, you see there's not even an understanding of like basic user interfaces. You see algorithm like sends out that email, and then you switch to a real life computer, and this giant like email icon with the red dot like pops up and takes up half the screen before it does a little twirl and like dips back into the corner. And it's like, that no computer does that. That's never been a thing. That's not what notifications look like.
The people who wrote this movie and the visual designers, they know what phones do. They all have
right?
them. They know what a phone looks like, and how it operates. So yeah. I guess they just assume that kids don't know what phones look like or do, because a kid would have no idea how a smartphone works. Not in 2021 anyway.
I don't know though, because you ask kids like, oh, what does it look like when you talk on the phone, and they go like this now. They like put up their hand as if it's a smartphone.
I was being sarcastic, of course.
Oh, yeah.
That's what the writers think, but obviously, kids today, they get a smartphone pretty much 5 minutes after they're born. So
for the amount of like market research that these huge corporations go through, how is it so hard for them to actually understand the demographics that they're pandering to I don't get it.
Yeah.
I don't understand it. And it's like, it seems like it should be such an easy thing. And like, you have, thousands of people like us who are like offering their criticisms like, hey, don't do that. That looks stupid. This is what you
Yeah.
should probably do. And it's like, why does it keep happening? Why does it keep looking the same?
Yeah, I mean, I truly don't know. I truly don't know. And I mean, I was even thinking, I mean, even more recent like children's movies, like even ongoing franchises, like the first like Despicable Me movie and like the first Kung Fu Panda, like those were really good movies. Like those were
Yeah,
still
those are fun.
mature, yeah,
Those are
mature,
fun.
fun kids movies. But those franchises, it feels like really in the last decade, it went from the point where we still kind of knew how to make kids movies that were intelligent and mature while also being funny and colorful and everything else, to like the more recent Despicable Me films where it's just like
Minions screaming for an hour and a half.
exactly like just it's like just what are we even doing anymore, and but yes, I mean to your point, when it comes to video game movies, yes, I mean it's been the one thing that Hollywood really hasn't been able to crack, ever really. I mean,
And it's not even like movies about video games. It's
well,
really just movies that have video games components in them. Like
and
even
and
that is a struggle.
and that's the thing, because I mean, and I'll say this: I heard that Sonic from last year. I heard that was pretty good, but I never saw it. Like the only movie that I could really truly think of, only video game movie that was not just passable but good, was the first Wreck-It Ralph movie. Like that was the only one that was a truly good, big budget Hollywood video game movie. And that wasn't even a video game adaptation. It was just a movie that was about video games that featured a lot of video game, famous characters.
Yeah, but even then, like you have the characters traversing from game to game through electrical outlets.
Right. Yeah.
Like what?
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Yeah, it's yeah, but and even then there's a caveat, because of course the second Wreck-It Ralph movie was terrible.
Yeah, they connect to the internet and that.
Yeah. It was kind of like this in a lot of ways. That was just a cavalcade of advertisements for various Disney IPs.
Yeah.
Has
that been a recent trend? And I feel like that's kind of been a trend, because you see it in Wreck-It Ralph Break the Internet.
Mm-hmm.
You see it in Ready Player One.
Mm-hmm.
You see it in this. It's like what is with these studios like trying to show off every IP they have in a single scene?
Yeah, and I don't think it's a coincidence that all three of those movies were, pretty loathed by critics when they came out, and they underperformed as well. I mean, this movie did pretty well by box office standards, because we're still kind of in this like in between place between pandemic and no pandemic, but still.
But also it's like it's that nostalgia of the original Space Jam.
Yeah, that's really what a lot of it is. I bet you, because if you're a parent, why would you schlep out to the theater, dragging X number of kids in tow? It's going to be $100 plus, easily afternoon to go see this movie, when there's so much on streaming now. You could just park your kids in front of the TV and they could.
I mean, we streamed this movie.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying, is that, if you're a parent, why would you make the effort to bring your kids to this when you could just watch it at home or not watch it at all and just, put on something else? Yeah. So I bet you that a lot of those box office receipts are from people like us who have nostalgia for the original and want to see, what they do with the next one. And not as much, I mean, obviously families will still make up a decent proportion of that, but not as much as I think there would have been in a, if this came out a few years ago, say, this came out 5-6 years ago. But yeah, so I don't think it's a coincidence that every time a big studio has tried to do this, it has not come out well. Because again, forget kids, just people in general are not stupid. People don't like paying $15 to go to the movie theater to watch an advertisement. Like it's not appealing. Yes, thing thing yeah, all those things were cool, that's why we loved them in the first place, but that's not what I paid to see. I don't, you can't just drag out all of these better liked IP to fill the gaps in creating a good story in the first place, and creating a good movie in the first place. And
speaks larger to two huge Hollywood issues.
Mm.
One is the epidemic of reboots, reboots and sequels and soft reboots, and we've had countless Disney live action remakes. This is just a rehashing of, well, I guess it's not the same story, but it's the same concept. Plus, you get like the updated CGI version of these characters. It's like nobody asked for that.
Yeah.
But then you also have the larger issue of like more and more. So the way I see it, like movies and films and TV and just like really any kind of any medium, but particularly the audiovisual medium, sits on a spectrum from like art to entertainment. And more Hollywood is just stepping over to entertainment and completely abandoning the artistic side of things. And it's like kids' movies are, the most notorious for this offense, I think.
Yeah.
But there's very little craft in them these days, and it's like, CGI reliant, cheap humor, big actors for no reason.
Yeah, pretty much big name actors who are just showing up to collect a paycheck, and not doing much else. So to recap, for LeBron, I understand the appeal of the idea of Space Jam 2 because he gets to be, a top billed actor, and he gets to do do a thing that only Michael Jordan was the only other person to do. But for him, the way he's written in this movie, I don't see why this particular story was the one that appealed to him. The story was, there were just so many, as you said, conveniences, plot holes, things that just should have been structured differently, and the movie itself acknowledges when it's doing the wrong thing and continues to do it anyway.
I mean, in the beginning, when he's in the boardroom, like with the Warner Brothers executives, like that's the whole thing. Is like Algorithm is explaining like, hey, we're gonna have LeBron James involved with all our Warner Brothers IP, and it's gonna be fun and entertaining. And LeBron James himself is like, that is the dumbest idea I've ever heard.
Exactly,
that's literally what you're doing right now. That is the movie.
It is self-aware in that it's doing the wrong thing, but it's going to continue to do that.
It's somehow self-aware and completely unself-aware at the same time. It's
true.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's astonishing.
It really is. It really is. And so for LeBron, it makes sense, but it doesn't make sense. For fans of Space Jam, this is... it is. First of all, Space Jam really didn't need to come back. It was a one-time thing. We had fun the first time, but that was really a lightning in the bottle. Don't bring it back. But if you have to bring it back, don't do this. Like if for a fan of the original movie, this one does hurt. Because like even the little Monstar characters, from the first film, they're like on the sidelines in this movie, but they don't even speak. They don't say anything. No one even acknowledges that they're there. The movie does acknowledge a couple times that the events of the first movie did happen, but only to like roll its eyes at the fact that, oh yeah, it's the same thing over again. NBA superstar have to play a high stakes basketball game with the Looney Tunes, yada yada yada. But at no point does it actually leverage any goodwill from that first movie, because they don't bring anything back other than the broadest idea that NBA star plays basketball game with Looney Tunes. So yeah, if you're a parent, don't waste your time. There still is good stuff being made for kids today, but on the whole, on the broadest level, kids movies, the bar has been lowered so much. It's sad to see, honestly. It's sad to see because, it's this total dumbing down of any kind of family entertainment and children's entertainment, you know, that I mean, I'll say this, I can't imagine it serving today's youth very well because,
No,
you know,
they're if they're not learning from it, then they're not
yeah,
growing from it,
or
then they're just
being,
gonna end up being dumb. Like,
exactly, or being challenged in any way. Like, you
yeah,
know,
like why are you not, trying to challenge your child intellectually? I don't get it.
exactly, like, you know, like you take a movie like, it's not just Pixar, obviously. I mean, Pixar is kind of the gold standard. But you take a movie
For
like,
animated movies, it is, yeah.
yeah, it is the gold standard. But you know, you take a movie like, I mean, hell, I mean, I was gonna say Wall-E, but we don't have to go that far. The original SpongeBob movie, right? That movie has a great moral. You know, you have to both believe in yourself and trust your friends. You know, you have
Yeah.
to work with your friends and come together to
It's
achieve
about
big
that.
things.
And it's also, I mean, it's even more than that, because it's also like you don't have to grow up too quickly.
Exactly.
That was another whole component, is that SpongeBob is like trying to be a man. It's like, no, just be yourself. Enjoy being a kid, because like,
Exactly, and that's
kids
great.
are valuable members of society too. They have
Yeah.
their worth.
Yeah, and that's great. And that is fantastic. I mean, the same thing with Shrek, you know. I mean, and you know, believing in yourself and not being ashamed of who you are. And how, you don't have to go by the script in order to do heroic things.
Yeah.
Like, that's great. And to say nothing about, obviously, the Pixar films, The Incredibles, Wall-E, Up, the list goes on. So it's just such a shame. What are kids today going to learn from Hotel Transylvania or any of these movies now? Like, what are you going to get from that? So it's a shame that, that kids' movies today are kind of in the state that they're in. Not all of them, but too many of them.
Yeah.
And so if you're a parent, don't bother. There's much better things to watch with your kids or just put on for your kids. If you're a kid, I don't see what the appeal of this would be. Like, go watch SpongeBob episodes from 20 years ago, and you'll have a much better time than this. Like, hell, I mean, even SpongeBob today is still pretty good. It's not as good as, back when, back in our day, but, like, the modern stuff
funnier
is still,
than this.
Yeah, exactly.
Better yet, go watch the original Looney Tunes cartoons.
Yeah, go watch the original Looney Tunes, which are hilarious. Go watch the original
great.
Space Jam. Yeah. So yeah, if you're a kid, you're gonna be bored and disappointed, and you're not gonna get anything out of it. If you're a parent, don't waste your time. There's much better stuff to show your kids. If you're a fan of the original movie, just
This
don't.
is not for you.
It'll break your heart.
Yeah.
If you're a fan of the original Looney Tunes, don't bother, because they're barely in their own movie. Like there's barely any Looney Tunes stuff in this movie. So if you're a fan of Looney Tunes, don't waste your time. Go watch the old Looney Tunes, because there's nothing for you here. If you're a fan of LeBron James, I mean, yeah, he's in it, but he doesn't look very good in it. He doesn't.
Yeah, he looks like a shithead, and also a terrible actor, by the way.
Yeah. His acting is not the best. So if you're a fan of LeBron James, don't bother. If you are LeBron James, I can see why, but maybe should have reconsidered. If you're Warner Brothers, this just looks kind of...
Hire us. Yeah. We will rewrite your movies for you.
Exactly. Hire us, and also
pay us money.
Like, this all just feels so grasping, honestly, the Warner Brothers. I mean, Warner Brothers just comes off as like this, like, weird, like, disconnected corporation that is just about being a farm for IP and not actually telling a story.
They already have money. Who are they advertising to?
Yeah.
Why are they advertising the intellectual properties that most people have probably already seen?
Yeah, stuff that they already like. Like, so...
to rewatch it? Like, we already paid for it. Like...
Yeah, I mean, honestly,
you're not going to get more money for after this, so...
Yeah, honestly, like, I mean, like, putting in a reference putting in a recreation of a scene of a movie that you just released 7 months ago. Like,
I'm not gonna go back and rewatch it. That's
yeah, I mean, it's not even like calling back a movie that came out like 50 years ago, so maybe you need a refresher. No, Wonder Woman 1984 just came out. We remember, we saw it. Like, we don't need a callback to it here. So if you're Warner Brothers, this was unnecessary, and I mean, yeah, it's gonna make money. It has already made money, but it's not necessary.
that's the worst part. Is that they always do.
Yeah,
all
it's
these
true.
bad movies, they always make money.
They do make money, but studios notice the ones that really pop versus the ones that just break even. And I think this ends up just breaking even, especially with all the animated stuff in CG. Like, this must have been expensive, and they've been advertising it everywhere, so that's expensive.
That is true.
So in fact, I would be surprised if this movie ended up breaking even, because the box office is still pretty weak, and HBO Max, like, if you spend $15-$16 to sign up for HBO Max just to watch this, but then cancel the very next month, I mean, you got them, but they're not sticking around. So so for all of those groups and all of those reasons, this movie was not good, unnecessary, insulting in sections. And all around a disappointment. So
before we get into actually giving numerical ratings, I do want to ask, is there anything in this movie that you actually enjoyed?
Like I said, the Looney Tunes stuff was cool. Like, when we go to all the different like worlds and like we check in with where everybody is, that was cool. Like, a big portion of the second half of the game, when the Looney Tunes are doing Looney Tunes stuff, that was cool. So the Looney Tunes stuff, shockingly, were the coolest parts. I did like that. And I'll say this, obviously, Algae Rhythm, stupid, but Don Cheadle, of all the acting that we saw in this movie, Don Cheadle did the best job. I will say that Don Cheadle he did his best in this movie, and so I do want to give him credit for that. He was also one of the better parts.
Although I'm also wondering, like, would it have been better to have like a cheesier B-list actor doing it? Because then maybe the movie would have been a little more self-aware. Because I think that's part of the problem is when you see like really, really, really good, super high-end actors playing out these really shitty roles where they can't really do much with them.
Yeah.
It feels like it drags down the quality of the movie. Whereas if it was just like some guy who's like way over the top and like,
or just somebody who has more natural comedic chops. Like, if you got like a comedian, like they reference Kevin Hart in this. If Kevin Hart was Algae Rhythm, that probably would have been really funny. So
yeah, that could have been good.
Yeah, so I think if they had a comedian in that role, they probably could have done more with it. I don't know, like I don't know what comedians would be good in that. Maybe, I don't know, maybe like, this is really out of the box, but Bill Burr, like, he could just be like, he could be a little more sarcastic about it, a little more self-aware. Like, that would be fun. Or somebody like that. So I think that Don Cheadle, he did his best, and he was definitely, I think, the acting highlight of the movie. But I think if they had gotten someone who was a little bit more naturally funny, they could have maximized it. So the good parts were, and the parts that I liked were the Looney Tunes parts, which were far too short, and Don Cheadle, despite the role he was cast in. But everything else was either boring or a letdown. So.
I will say, this one doesn't really compare to the original, but I actually do like, concerning it is kind of a reboot, I do like the direction they took with it, where instead of like actually going to space, it's like, kind of a digital landscape. I thought that was new and interesting.
Yeah, that was different.
And I appreciated them trying. They definitely could have done a much better job of it. But like, they went for it, which was pretty cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know, not much great.
So I mean that was different, but still same kind of thing. Also, the Goon Squad was I mean, I don't know. I mean, They
I
just
like
they
the name Goon Squad because it rhymes with Toon Squad.
yeah, the Goon Squad. I mean, the name is
Like
fine, and
Monstars is classic, but Goon Squad is like kind of cool.
yeah, and I do like that it was kind of the same thing as the original, because in the original, the Monstars, they get their basketball ability by sapping it from actual NBA players and NBA stars, and this one, it featured a few kind of big name NBA stars, so that was all right. But
If
like,
they had actually gotten like those stars instead of just doing CGI, chimera versions of them, I think that also would
yeah,
have been really, really cool.
yeah, that would be cool, because the Monstars in the original, they were just like these like big dudes, and they were kind of like the design was cool, like they
Yeah.
were just like these hulking, imposing guys. Where I mean, like the monsters, it's like it didn't do anything for me. It didn't make an impression at all. So yeah, but yeah, the good parts were the Looney Tunes parts and Don Cheadle, and that was it.
Yeah.
And also, just want to re-emphasize what you said. Too long. The movie overstays its welcome. Absolutely.
Oh my God, yeah.
The first
Jesus Christ.
film, it knew exactly what it was. It was a cool 90 minutes in and out. Tells the story. You have a great time. 2 hours is way too much for this. It just, especially in the second act, it drags a lot. And the game dragged on too. So, yeah.
Yeah, so first scene of the movie, yes, it's a callback to the original Space Jam. Not
Mm.
necessary. Cut it. All it says is LeBron doesn't like video games because basketball.
Yeah.
Which we already get
And I guess
through the way that he parents his kids. So
yeah, and I guess that's to set up the thing you're about to see in 30 seconds anyway. That
it's like it's unnecessary.
The coach says you have to focus on basketball, not on distractions. So it makes sense when LeBron says you have to focus on basketball, not on distractions. But it's not necessary.
Yeah,
So,
what I would do is actually open on the scene of Algorithm, kind of like picking LeBron James. Maybe give a better reason for why he does that.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just like, hey, I'm an algorithm, but I'm black. Let me pick a black celebrity. So,
or at least
know.
like show us some of the other alternatives. Like maybe he was like LeBron, The Rock, maybe Obama.
Maybe completely random. Like he just has a board of different celebrities, and it's just like,
Yeah.
I don't know who to choose. Who random number generator? Who do I choose? Oh, LeBron James. Okay. But have that because no one understands who Algorithm is, and that's a hook. And then you go to the title sequence, really cool. Then you open on LeBron James, like with his family. That doesn't need to take as long, but like there's so much you can cut out. It's like they spent a little bit too much time during the first introduction of the Digiverse and then in Toon World. I would have liked to see more of those like live action worlds where they're going around and actually like trying to find people and struggling rather than just doing it in a montage.
Yeah.
And then they're like training on the ship, and then they go to some more worlds, and then they're training on the ship, and then they go to Toon World, and then they're training on Toon World, and then the game starts. It's like you don't really need all that.
Yeah.
Like, you can cut a lot of that out.
Absolutely. Like, if you're going to make the movie one big advertisement, then lean into it. Spend more time going to all these different places,
Yeah.
And also, I mean, I'm sorry, I'm hung up on the Superman thing, but why couldn't Superman help? Just have
that would have been so cool.
Have him explain why. Either
he's
have
super
him help
strong. Like
explain why he can't help. I mean, I don't understand. But
although, okay, in this movie, LeBron kind of an asshole, but really smart because that list of team lists he writes, brilliant. Yeah. Super smart. Great choices. Bugs Bunny, selfish prick trying to rescue his friends. Just like, no. Do it yourself. You could have escaped Toon World at any time because you figured out how to do it with, Marvin the Martian's ship.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah. And also Zendaya was the voice of Lola Bunny. Don't know why she was. Okay. Don't know why you needed to get someone as big as Zendaya for it. I mean, if anything, it would have been cool if you could have gotten one of the original voice actors for Lola back. But no, they cast Zendaya even though it doesn't matter. Name. Yeah.
They're really trying to pad their credits, aren't they?
Yeah. Although I will say this for Lola, one perhaps the only thing that this movie improved characterization wise from the original to this one, I liked how in this one, they de-emphasized Lola is like this like sexy bunny chick, and they kind of more emphasize she's just really competent at basketball.
Yeah, like strong woman character.
Yeah. So that's the one character that improved from the original to this one.
Yeah, I get uncomfortable talking about Lola Bunny because a lot of people when this came out were like, "Oh my God, they massacred my girl,"
right.
And like all of those people you just know are potential bunny fuckers.
Yeah.
And that's
we gotta watch out for them. Yeah.
Don't fuck rabbits, please.
No, do not.
Bad.
Do not. You heard it from observation conversations. We're telling you now, don't do it. But yeah, that's literally
first official political stance. Don't fuck rabbits.
Yeah, that's gonna be our 2024 platform. Is where we're gonna run on that. But yeah, that's the one character that improved from the last one to this one. But other than that, yeah.
Until they all became CG.
Yeah, and then
everyone got worse.
Yeah, everyone got worse. So yeah, you spend more time in the worlds. Like if it's gonna be an ad, go all the way with it.
Yeah. If this movie was just like a lot more self-aware, it could have been really funny. It could have been great.
Yeah, honestly. Because that's something with the original is that the original was very self-aware of what it was. There was a lot of self-referential humor. The absurdity of the situation was pointed out several times. It was a kind of a recurring gag that when this movie came out, obviously Jordan had stopped playing basketball. He was doing baseball, and he was this was still just before his return to basketball. And so he was constantly being being razzed because he was the greatest of all time in the sport. He just hung up, he just hung it up and went to play baseball for no one could really tell why. I mean, as we would learn later, what Michael Jordan's reasons were in that excellent documentary that came out last year, The Last Dance. Great documentary, by the way. Highly recommend it. I think it's on Netflix. But very self-aware is basically what I'm saying. And that was great. This movie, it was self-aware, but it didn't do anything to...
Not enough.
Yeah, not nearly enough.
It tried to be self-aware, but it wasn't self-aware enough to understand how to be self-aware and funny at the same time, which is
Absolutely.
Like probably ironic, but I don't know.
Yeah, I guess. So, at any rate, to wrap up, what score will you give Space Jam: A New Legacy?
I'm thinking 4. That's the number that popped in my head. I don't know if that's too generous, but that's what I'm sticking with.
Yeah, I'm in that same neighborhood. For me, I was thinking 3. When we finished watching the movie, that was the number that I came up with. This is a 3 out of 10. Bad. Not the worst thing in the world, but that's not exactly a bar.
I've definitely seen worse.
Yeah, but that's not exactly the best bar to clear.
Yeah.
Space Jam: A New Legacy, not the worst thing in the world. But yeah, no, 3 out of 10.
Space Jam: A New Legacy. You won't die if you watch it.
Yeah. So, yeah, 3 out of 10. Not good. Don't recommend it. Save your money or save your time. Yeah, this is for everyone involved. LeBron, the studio, the fans, parents, kids.
Get your shit together.
Yeah, and don't bother. If you meet any one of those descriptions or just a person who watches movies occasionally, don't watch this.
And if you worked on this movie, also buy a computer, learn how it works, play a video game, please.
You have all of these editors and visual effects supervisors, people who work on these incredibly complex softwares and machines, but in the movie, it's like what someone from the 1970s would make of like a smartphone or like a laptop or personal computer.
It's like those sketches, those from like the 1950s and 60s and 70s. You had those sketches of the future where like everyone is in these like flying cars and like you have these glass dome buildings and like this is the equivalent of someone like imagining what the internet looks like.
Exactly.
Where they're drawing it and they're just like so far off.
So save your money, don't waste your time. Go watch something. Go watch the original. Go watch the classic Looney Tunes. Go watch any of the other better animated movies that we've talked about. Just don't do this.
Yeah.
Watch
more of our show. Watch some other episodes. Leave a like, comment, subscribe if you haven't. We're only at 14, so if we could bump those numbers up, that would be great.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And is there any last thoughts that you have?
I think if we spend any more time on this movie, I'm gonna cry.
Yeah.
So no.
Unlike this movie, we're not going to overstay your welcome. But I will say it is very fitting that we are reviewing this now, not only because, as I mentioned, it seems kind of fitting because it's a sports thing and the Olympics are on, and the NBA season itself just concluded. Congrats, Bucks, by the way. Very likable team. Giannis, bright future. The Lakers themselves, of course, got knocked out in the first round, but we won't mention that. But it's also fitting because, as we were just discussing, there are multiple allusions to the DC Comics world in this movie. And, let's just say next week we are going to be immersing ourselves very fully in that world. I think we'll have a much better time with it too. We'll have a much better time there with this.
I hope so.
I have faith. Let's just say I think that it's going to be a bloody good time.
Boo.
Oh, it was all right. But yes, if you haven't guessed it already, we'll just have to leave you in suspense. But we will be back next week with another review, and all will be made clear. So stay tuned for that. And thank you very much for tuning in and joining us as always. I've been Jonathan.
I've been Reid.
And we will speak to you again next week with another review.
Good night, everybody.